My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber operation in the state, but for the last year, I have been known as something else, a ghost. On the day my only son stood before 500 people in the desert and signed away his name, his fortune, and the future I'd bled to build for him, I died. Not in body, but in purpose. They called it a grand ascension. He called it freedom. I watched from the back row in a borrowed hat, my heart turning to sawdust in my chest. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't there to say goodbye. I was there to perform an autopsy, not on his faith, but on his profit. You see, when someone tries to bury your legacy, you don't bring a shovel to the funeral. You bring a ledger, and by the time I was finished, the man they called the visionary would be begging to wash dishes in my charity kitchen. But before I tell you how I buried a false god with the ink from a pen, tell me something. Where are you right now? Put it in the comments. I read every one. To this community of sons, daughters, fathers, and fighters, your stories are the timber that holds this roof up. Thank you. And if you're new, do an old lumberman a solid. Like subscribe and hit that bell. You're not just clicking a button, you're joining the watchfire. And out here in the dark, we all need a little light. Now, let me tell you how I bought a prophet's soul for less than the price of a used Tesla. The lawyer's voice came through the phone like static from a different life. Mr. Brennan, I'm calling to inform you that the Brennan Family Trust has been liquidated. I was standing in my study. Oak floors my grandfather milled in 1947, walls lined with 3 generations of Brennan men in hard hats and steel-toed boots. I looked at the photo of my father, the one where he's standing in front of the first lumber mill, cigarette dangling from his lip, eyes sharp as saw teeth. What do you mean, liquidated? Your son executed a full disbursement yesterday afternoon, $2,173,000, transferred in its entirety to an entity called the New Dawn Collective. I sat down, not because my legs gave out, because if I didn't, I was going to put my fist through the window. He can't do that. Sir, at 34 years old, with full mental capacity and legal authority over the trust as of his 30th birthday, he absolutely can. I hung up. For a long time, I just sat there. The house was silent. My wife, Celeste, no, that's not her name. My wife, Margaret, had been gone for 6 years. Cancer. Chase hadn't come to the funeral, said he was on a spiritual journey in Guatemala. I'd forgiven him for that. Sons grieve differently. But this, I dialed his number, voicemail. I tried again, voicemail. Third time, he picked up. Dad. His voice was calm, too calm, like he'd rehearsed this. Chase, what the hell did you do? I gave my inheritance to something that matters. That money was your grandfather's, your great-grandfather's. 4 generations of what, Dad? Cutting down trees. You think that's a legacy? I felt something crack in my chest. Not anger, worse, shame. Chase, we need to talk, face to face. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Son, please. Dad, I'm happy. For the first time in my life, I'm actually happy. Elias showed me what real wealth looks like. It's not in a bank account. It's in purpose, in community, in... Who the hell is Elias? Silence. Then, he's the man who saved my life. The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the study with a bottle of whiskey I didn't open and a loaded question I couldn't answer. How do you lose a son without him dying? By 3 a.m., I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to sue. You can't litigate a broken heart. But I could do what I've always done when something didn't make sense. I could follow the numbers. At dawn, I called my estate attorney. I need the name of the best forensic accountant you know, someone who can follow money through hell and back. He didn't ask why, just said, I'll send you a contact by noon. Her name was Bianca Tallis, and she was about to show me that my son hadn't joined a church. He'd walked into a trap. Bianca Tallis didn't look like someone who'd taken down cartel financiers and unraveled Ponzi schemes that made Madoff look like a pickpocket. She looked like someone who'd teach yoga, maybe run a bookstore, mid-40s, black coffee, no laptop out yet, just a leather notebook and a pen that probably cost more than my first truck. We met at a cafe in Portland. Neutral ground, she'd insisted. Mr. Brennan, she didn't offer her hand, just gestured to the seat across from her. Tell me why you're here. I slid a folder across the table. Bank statements, trust documents, the wire transfer receipt. My son gave $2 million to a man named Elias Kane. I want to know who he really is. She didn't open the folder, just looked at me with the kind of eyes that had seen too many versions of this story. Do you want to be right, or do you want to win? I frowned. What's the difference? Being right means proving your son made a mistake. Winning means getting him out. I leaned forward. I want him out. She opened the folder, scanned the first page, then the second. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. The New Dawn Collective, Religious 501(c)(3), founded in Nevada, operates in 4 states. Elias Kane is the spiritual director and CEO. No board of directors, no financial audits published. Everything flows through him. That's legal. Technically, yes. Religious organizations get a lot of leeway. As long as donations are voluntary and there's no explicit fraud, the IRS mostly leaves them alone. She closed the folder. But here's the thing, Mr. Brennan. I don't chase legal. I chase truth. And the truth always costs more than you think. Name your price. She did. I didn't blink, just wrote the check. 3 days later, she called. We need to meet, not at a cafe. She gave me an address, a storage unit on the east side of town. When I got there, she was standing in front of a corkboard covered in printouts, photos, and red string like something out of a detective show. But this wasn't fiction. Elias Kane, she said, tapping a photo of a man in white linen, arms spread wide in front of a crowd. Handsome, mid-40s, looked like a goddamn motivational speaker. Real name, Silas Emery, born in Dayton, Ohio. Marketing degree from a mid-tier state school, founded a tech startup in 2012. It failed, filed for personal bankruptcy in 2014. Owed investors over $400,000. She pointed to another photo. 2 years later, he resurfaces as Elias Kane. Starts the New Dawn Collective with 12 people in a rented house in Nevada. Within 3 years, he's operating 4 compounds. Owns property worth over $8 million and has 300 active members. How? Donations, but not the kind you'd see at a church bake sale. Members are encouraged to release material attachment. Translation, give us everything. Savings, inheritances, real estate. Your son wasn't the first. He's just the biggest fish. I felt my jaw tighten. So, he's a con man. He's more than that. Bianca pulled another sheet. In 2017, a woman named Celeste Oren filed a police report against Silas Emery. Claimed he defrauded her of $340,000. She said he recorded private therapy sessions without her consent, then used those recordings to blackmail her into silence when she tried to leave. What happened? The case was dropped. Celeste disappeared. No social media. No forwarding address. No contact with her family for over 2 years. My stomach turned. You think he killed her? No. I think he did something worse. I think he made her believe she had no choice but to vanish. Bianca crossed her arms. Elias doesn't use violence, Mr. Brennan. He uses shame, secrets, fear. He makes people destroy themselves. I stared at the board, at the faces of young men and women who looked like Chase, bright, hopeful, lost. Can we prove any of this? Not yet, but I found something. She handed me a document. Property deed. One of the compounds, Mojave Dawn, the largest one, was purchased under a shell company. The signature on the deed didn't match Elias's handwriting. Who signed it? Someone named Bryce Carrington. Except Bryce Carrington doesn't exist. It's a ghost. But the other signature? She tapped the page. Celeste Oren. 3 months before she filed the police report. I looked up. She helped him buy it? Or he forged her name. Either way, she's the key. If we find Celeste, or someone who knows what happened to her, we find the leverage. And if we find the leverage, we find a way to break him. Bianca nodded. But here's the part you're not going to like. Celeste had a sister, Emery Oren, lives in Portland, and according to my sources, she's been trying to find Celeste for 3 years. So we talked to her. We do, but Mr. Brennan, Bianca's voice softened. Once you open this door, you can't close it. You're going to learn things about Elias, about the collective, maybe even about your son, and some of those things are going to hurt worse than the money. I met her eyes. I've already lost him. The only question now is whether I'm going to let someone else profit from it. She handed me an address on a sticky note. Emery Oren, studio apartment, Northeast Portland. She doesn't trust anyone, so when you knock on her door, you better have a damn good reason for her to let you in. I pocketed the note. I'll tell her the truth. The man who destroyed her sister is doing the same thing to my son, and if we don't stop him, there'll be more. Bianca didn't smile, but she nodded. Then you better move fast. Because Elias Kane isn't just good at taking money, Mr. Brennan. He's good at making people disappear. So here's my question for you. Have you ever met someone who seemed too good to be true and turned out to be exactly that? Tell me in the comments, because the worst predators don't look like monsters. They look like saviors. Hit that like button if you're still with me, and subscribe, because this fight is just getting started. Bianca told me not to go. You're too emotional, she said. You'll blow our investigation before we even have one. She was right. I went anyway. I couldn't sit in that study anymore, staring at photos of a boy who'd built birdhouses in the lumber yard, wondering how he'd become a man who'd sign away his future to a stranger in white linen. The drive to the Mojave took 3 hours. My GPS lost signal 40 miles out, and I had to follow hand-painted signs nailed to fence posts. New Dawn Collective. All seekers welcome. The compound didn't look like a prison. It looked like a resort. Solar panels glittering in the desert sun. Rows of organic gardens with people in white linen tending tomatoes and squash. A central meeting hall with floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the light like a cathedral. I parked my truck between a Prius and a vintage VW van. For a moment, I just sat there, hands on the wheel, trying to decide if I was about to rescue my son or lose him forever. A young woman approached before I could overthink it. Early 20s, long dark hair, serene smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome," she said. "Are you here to join us?" "I'm here to see my son, Chase Brennan." Her smile didn't waver. "Chase is in reflection today, but you're welcome to wait. I'm Talia, and Elias will want to meet you." "I'm not here to meet Elias." "Of course," she gestured toward the main hall, "but he'll want to meet you anyway." I followed her through the gardens. People nodded as we passed. No one looked brainwashed. No one looked drugged. They looked content, like they'd found something I'd spent 63 years searching for and never quite located. It made me angrier than if they'd looked miserable. The main hall was cool inside, filled with the smell of sage and something floral I couldn't name. Cushions on the floor, low tables, a wall covered in handwritten notes. I release my fear. I choose clarity. I am enough. And then he walked in. Elias Kane. Tall. Handsome in that way that makes people trust you before you've earned it. Mid-40s but moving like someone younger. His voice was warm, almost paternal. "Ryder." He said my name like we were old friends. "Chase has told me so much about you." I didn't offer my hand. "I want to speak to my son." "Of course, but first, Walk with me." It wasn't a request. We walked through the gardens. Elias moved slowly, deliberately, pointing out plants like a tour guide. "We grow everything ourselves here. No pesticides, no exploitation, just the earth giving what it's meant to give." He glanced at me. "Chase told me you built a lumber empire. 4 generations of Brennan men cutting down forests. We replanted, sustainably." "Of course." His smile was patient, pitying. "But tell me, Ryder, when you cut down a 200-year-old tree to build a deck someone will replace in 20 years, does the replanting undo the violence?" I stopped walking. "You want to talk about violence? You took $2 million from my son." Elias turned to face me fully. His expression didn't change. "Ryder, Chase gave that money freely. He wanted to invest in something greater than himself, a community built on spiritual equity, not inherited wealth." He paused. "Can you say you've ever done that?" My fists clenched at my sides, but I didn't swing. Not yet. "I want to see Chase." "And you will." Elias gestured toward a small structure at the edge of the property. "He's finishing his reflection. He'll meet you by the meditation garden in 10 minutes. He started to walk away, then stopped. "Ryder, I know you think I'm your enemy, but I'm not. I'm just the man who gave your son permission to become who he really is. The question you should be asking is, why does that terrify you?" I waited by the meditation garden, a circle of stones surrounding a small fountain. The desert wind was picking up, carrying sand that stung my eyes. And then I saw him. Chase. Thinner than I remembered. Hair longer, barefoot, but it was his face that stopped me cold. He looked peaceful, like he'd found something I couldn't give him. "Dad." He walked over and hugged me. It felt like hugging a stranger. "Chase." My voice cracked. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I'm happy here. You gave away $2 million. I invested it in something real. This man is using you." Chase pulled back, and for the first time I saw something flicker in his expression. Not anger, disappointment. "Dad, Elias isn't using me. He's showing me the truth. That money? It was a chain. Grandpa's chain. Your chain. And I'm finally free of it." "That money was your future." "No, Dad. It was your future. The one you wanted for me. I never asked to run a lumber company. I never asked to carry that legacy." His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Elias showed me that I don't have to." I felt something break inside me. Not anger, not even grief. Just the realization that my son had been drowning, and I hadn't noticed. "Chase, please, just come home. We can talk." "I am home." He turned and walked back toward the main hall. I stood there, alone in the desert, watching him disappear. I was halfway to my truck when someone touched my arm. Talia, the young woman from earlier. She glanced over her shoulder, then pressed something into my palm. A folded piece of paper. She didn't say a word, just met my eyes, and in that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in anyone else here. Fear. I waited until I was back in my truck 3 miles down the dirt road before I unfolded it. Handwritten, shaky letters. Celeste's sister, Emery Orrin, Portland. Find her. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called Bianca. "I just met him," I said. "Elias." "And?" "He's good, really good. And Chase." I swallowed hard. "Chase believes every word." "Ryder, listen to me. There's more. Someone slipped me a note, told me to find Emery Orrin." Silence on the other end. Then, "Who gave it to you?" "A girl named Talia. She looked terrified." "Then she's our way in. But Ryder, if someone inside is helping you, that means Elias doesn't have complete control, and that means he's more dangerous than I thought." "Why?" "Because predators are most violent when they feel threatened." I looked at the note again. "I'm going to Portland. Tonight." "I'll meet you there." I hung up and started driving. And for the first time since that lawyer called, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like a man with a purpose. If you've ever had someone look you in the eye and tell you they're happy, while everything in your gut screams they're in danger, drop a comment. Because that's the cruelest kind of lie. The one they tell themselves. Like and subscribe if you're still with me. Because the deeper we go, the darker it gets. Emery Oren lived in a studio apartment above a Thai restaurant in northeast Portland. The hallway smelled like basil and fear. I knocked 3 times. The door opened 2 inches, chain still latched, and I found myself staring at a woman in her late 30s holding a baseball bat in one hand and a phone in the other, 911 already dialed. "Who the hell are you?" "My name is Ryder Brennan. I think the man who hurt your sister is doing the same thing to my son." The bat didn't lower, but something shifted in her eyes. "How did you find me?" "Someone inside the collective gave me your name. Said you've been looking for Celeste." The door closed. For a moment I thought she'd shut me out completely. Then I heard the chain slide free. Emery's apartment was small, obsessively organized and covered in maps. Red pins on a corkboard showing locations across 4 states, printed emails, screenshots of deleted social media posts, a timeline written in different colored markers stretching from 2016 to present day. This wasn't grief. This was warfare. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a futon. The bat was still in her hand. I sat. "Tell me about your son." So I did. The trust fund. The $2 million? Chase's calm voice on the phone saying he was happy. The compound. Elias Kane standing in the desert like a prophet with a Tesla parked behind him. When I finished, Emery set the bat down. "Your son isn't in a cult," she said quietly. "He's in a hostage situation, and the ransom isn't money." "Then what is it?" "His secrets." She walked to the corkboard and pulled down a printed document. Police report, filed October 2017. Complainant, Celeste Oren. Accused, Silas Emery, a.k.a. Elias Kane. My sister met him at a wellness retreat in 2016. She was 32, recently divorced, trying to figure out who she was without someone else defining her. Emery's voice was flat, controlled. Elias was everything she needed, charismatic, visionary. He told her she had gifts, that she was meant for something greater. She gave him money. $340,000. Her divorce settlement and the inheritance from our parents. He said it was an investment in the collective. In her future. Emery's jaw tightened. 6 months later, she started asking questions. Where was the money going? Why were there no financial records? Why did only Elias have access to the accounts? What happened? He turned the community against her. Suddenly, she was spiritually resistant, clinging to material attachment, poisoning the collective energy. People she thought were her friends stopped speaking to her. And then, Emery pulled down another document, typed letter, no signature. She got this, slipped under her door at the compound. I read it. "Celeste, we have recordings of every private session. Everything you told Elias. Your abortion at 19. The affair during your marriage. The thing you did to your father before he died. If you go to the police, we'll make sure everyone you've ever loved hears these recordings. You'll lose your job, your family, your reputation, walk away quietly, and your secrets stay buried." My stomach turned. Jesus Christ. She filed the report anyway, Emery said. She thought the law would protect her. But Elias had lawyers, good ones. They threatened defamation, said the recordings were part of voluntary spiritual counseling, claimed religious exemption. The DA wouldn't touch it. So she dropped the case. No, the case was dropped for her, and 2 weeks later, she disappeared. You think Elias killed her? No. Emery's voice cracked. I think he did something worse. I think he convinced her she had no choice but to vanish, to erase herself rather than face the shame of those recordings going public. She sat down on the futon next to me, suddenly looking exhausted. I got one phone call from her, 2 years ago. Burner phone. She was in Mexico. Wouldn't tell me where. She said she was safe, but she could never come home. Said Elias had insurance, that if she ever spoke publicly, he'd destroy her. Did she say what kind of insurance? No, but I've spent 3 years trying to find out. Emery gestured to the corkboard. I've tracked down 6 other women who gave him money. 4 of them won't talk to me. 1 moved to Canada and changed her name. 1, Bianca, became a forensic accountant specifically to take down people like Elias. I blinked. Wait, Bianca Tallis? Emery nodded. You know her? She's helping me. For the first time, Emery smiled. It was thin and sharp. Then you're in good hands. Bianca got out before Elias could leverage her, but she knows how he operates. I leaned forward. Emery, I need to ask you something. If Celeste wanted to come home, if we could prove Elias was blackmailing her, would you testify? In a heartbeat. Even if it meant those recordings became public? She met my eyes. My sister disappeared because she was ashamed, because Elias made her believe her past was more powerful than her future. If testifying means she gets to come home, I'll stand in front of a courtroom and tell them every ugly thing she ever did, because shame only works in the dark. I felt something click into place. Emery, I think my son is in the same trap. I think Elias has something on him, something Chase told him in one of those private sessions, and I think that's why he won't leave. Then you need to find out what it is, before Elias decides Chase knows too much. My phone buzzed. Text from Bianca. We need to talk. Found something. Call me now. I stood. Thank you for trusting me. Emery walked me to the door. Ryder, one more thing. Elias doesn't care about money. He cares about control. And the way he controls people is by making them complicit, by making them betray themselves so completely that leaving feels impossible. How do I break that? You don't. Your son has to choose to walk out himself. All you can do is hold the door open. I called Bianca from my truck. What did you find? Elias doesn't just record sessions, Ryder. He archives them. Cloud storage, password protected, but I found the server. Her voice was tight. There are over 300 audio files, dates going back 7 years, and one of them, she paused. One of them is labeled Chase Brennan, Session 12, full disclosure. My blood went cold. Can you access it? Not without a warrant or a hacker, and we don't have time for either. Then what do? We go to the FBI, wire fraud, tax evasion, blackmail. We have enough for them to open an investigation. How long will that take? Months, maybe years. I closed my eyes. Chase doesn't have years. I know. Silence. Then I heard myself say something I never thought I'd say. What if I went back? Back where? To the compound, not as a father, as a believer. What if I joined? Ryder, that's insane. He keeps those recordings because they're leverage, which means they're valuable, which means he stores them somewhere on site. If I can get inside, if I can find where he keeps them, you're talking about breaking into a cult leader's private office. Do you understand how dangerous that is? More dangerous than letting my son stay there? Bianca was quiet for a long moment. If you do this, you do it my way. With a wire. With a contingency plan. And with the understanding that if Elias figures out what you're doing, you're not walking out of there. I understand. Ryder, I'm serious. This man has made people disappear. I know, but he hasn't met a lumberman yet. I hung up and started the engine. In my rearview mirror, I saw Emery watching from her window. She raised one hand. Not a wave, a salute. From one soldier to another. Question for you. Have you ever had to pretend to be someone you're not just to protect someone you love? Tell me in the comments. Because what I'm about to do terrifies me. But losing my son terrifies me more. Hit that subscribe button. Because the deeper I go undercover, the more I realize this man doesn't just steal fortunes. He collects broken souls, and I'm about to hand him mine. I shaved my beard for the first time in 30 years, bought clothes I'd never wear, white linen pants, loose cotton shirts, sandals that cost more than my work boots. Bianca handed me a wire so small I could barely see it, hidden in a turquoise pendant that looked like something a man having a midlife crisis would buy at a spiritual retreat. "You sure about this?" she asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. I returned to the compound on a Sunday morning. Sunrise service. 50 people sitting in a circle in the desert, Elias in the center, speaking about release and transformation. I parked my truck and walked toward them. Elias saw me before I reached the circle. His face broke into a warm smile, the kind that makes you forget he's already calculating how to use you. "Ryder." He stood and opened his arms. "I knew you'd come back." I let him embrace me, felt the eyes of 50 people watching. "I need help," I said. My voice cracked, not entirely an act. "I've spent my whole life building things, lumber mills, money, a legacy, and I have nothing. My wife is dead. My son won't speak to me. Maybe Chase was right. Maybe I've been living the wrong way." Elias put his hand on my shoulder. "Ryder, the fact that you're here means you're already on the path. Welcome home, brother." The circle applauded, and just like that, I was inside. Life in the collective was simpler than I expected. Wake at dawn, yoga, meditation, work the gardens, communal meals where everyone shared what they were releasing, evening gatherings where Elias spoke about spiritual equity and the violence of inherited wealth. I kept my head down, pulled weeds, listened more than I talked, and I watched. Talia, the young woman who'd slipped me the note, kept her distance in public. But twice she caught my eye across the dining hall. Once she nodded toward the administrative building, a converted barn at the north edge of the property. That's where Elias kept his office. Chase worked in the gardens most days. We didn't talk much. He was polite, distant, like I was a stranger he was being kind to. It hurt worse than anger would have. But I also noticed cracks. Members who asked too many questions about finances were reassigned to a compound in Arizona. A man named Bryce who questioned why Elias drove a Tesla while preaching detachment was suddenly gone. Chose to continue his journey elsewhere, they said, and the private sessions. Every member had them once a week. One-on-one time with Elias in a small room off his office. People went in hopeful, came out quieter, more compliant. I knew what was happening in there. Bianca had told me. He was collecting ammunition, and in 3 days, it would be my turn. The night before my session, Talia found me by the tool shed. "You have to leave," she whispered. "Now. Elias knows." My blood went cold. "Knows what?" "That you're not here to join. He's been watching you. He knows about Bianca, about Emery. He's going to do to you what he did to Celeste. He's going to make you disappear." "How does he know?" She looked away. "He has someone on the outside, someone who tracks anyone who asks questions about the collective. I don't know who, but Ryder, you have maybe 12 hours before he moves against you. I'm not leaving without Chase. Chase won't leave, not yet. Elias has something on him. Something Chase told him in Session 8. I don't know what it is, but it's enough to keep him here." "Where does Elias keep the recordings?" Talia's eyes widened. "You can't." "Where?" She hesitated. Then, "His office. Locked filing cabinet behind the desk. But Ryder, he's in there every night until midnight. You'll never. Tomorrow night there's a new moon ceremony. Everyone will be outside, including Elias. He'll have the office locked. I know." I pulled a set of lockpicks from my pocket, tools I'd learned to use breaking into abandoned lumber mills as a kid. "How long will the ceremony last?" 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. "That's enough." She grabbed my arm. "Ryder, if he catches you—" "He won't." I met her eyes. "But if he does, you make sure Chase knows what I was trying to do. You make sure he knows I didn't abandon him." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" Because he's my son, and I've already lost too much time. The next night, under a moonless sky, 300 people gathered in the desert for a ceremony about releasing old identities. I stayed back, pretending to feel ill. Once the chanting started and Elias's voice carried across the sand, I slipped toward the administrative building. The lock on the office door took 40 seconds. Inside, I used my phone's flashlight, desk, bookshelves, and there, behind the desk, a locked filing cabinet. This lock was harder, commercial grade. My hands were shaking. 30 seconds, 60, 90. Click. The drawer slid open. Rows of USB drives, each labeled with a name and date. I found it. Chase Brennan, Session 8, 11, 14, 2023. My hands were trembling as I pocketed it. Then I saw others. Celeste Oren, Talia Reeves, Silas Emery, personal notes. I took them all. I was closing the drawer when I heard footsteps outside. The door opened. Elias stood in the doorway, backlit by the porch light. "Ryder," he said softly, "I'm disappointed." I didn't run. There was nowhere to go. "I know what you're doing," I said. "The recordings, the blackmail. You're not a spiritual leader. You're a predator." Elias closed the door behind him, locked it. "You don't understand what I've built here. These people were broken. I gave them purpose, community, meaning. You gave them a cage. I gave them freedom from the violence of their pasts, from shame, from the people who failed them." He stepped closer. "People like you, Ryder. Do you know what Chase told me in Session 8? He told me about the night his mother died, how you weren't there, how you were at the mill, closing a deal while she coded in a hospital room. He held her hand. Alone. He was 28 years old, and he had to decide whether to let them resuscitate her again." My throat closed. "He hates you for that. And I didn't put that hate there. You did. So you used it." "I liberated him from it." Elias's voice was calm, almost kind. "And now you've broken into my office, stolen my property, and proven that you're exactly the kind of man he needed to escape." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the sheriff. You'll be arrested for burglary. And when Chase hears what you've done, he'll never speak to you again." I felt the wire under my shirt. Bianca was listening to everything. "Go ahead," I said. "Call them. Because those recordings, they're evidence of blackmail, coercion, fraud, and the FBI is going to be very interested in how you've been funding this operation." Elias's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in his eyes. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" We stood there in the dark, two men who'd spent their lives building empires, staring each other down. And then the door burst open. Chase stood there, breathless. Talia behind him. "Dad, run, now." I stared at my son. "Chase, I heard everything. The wire. I know what you're doing, and I know what he's been doing." His voice cracked. "Dad, I'm sorry, for all of it, but we have to go. Now." Elias moved toward Chase. "Son, you're confused. I'm not your son." Chase's voice was steel. "And I'm done being afraid of you." We ran. Here's my question. Have you ever had to choose between being right and being free? Drop a comment. Because sometimes the hardest thing isn't proving someone hurt you, it's admitting you let them. Subscribe, because you've come this far. And trust me, the ending is worth it. Bianca met us at a gas station outside Barstow at 3 in the morning. She had a laptop, 3 phones, and a look that said she'd been ready for this moment for years. "You got 'em?" she asked. I handed her the USB drives. She plugged the first one into her laptop. Celeste Oren, Session 4. We listened in silence. Celeste's voice, raw and broken, talking about her father's abuse, about the abortion she'd had at 19, about the affair that ended her marriage, and Elias's voice, soft and gentle. "Thank you for trusting me with this. You're safe here." Except she wasn't, because 6 months later he'd use every word to keep her silent. Bianca plugged in another drive. Chase Brennan, Session 8. I looked at my son. Chase, you don't have to. Yes, I do. We listened. Chase's voice. The night my mom died, my dad wasn't there. He was at the lumber mill closing some deal he said couldn't wait. I was the one who held her hand. I was the one who told the doctors to stop resuscitating. And when he finally showed up 2 hours later, all he said was, "I'm sorry, son." Like that was enough. Like those 3 words could undo the fact that she died without him. My eyes burned. Chase's voice continued. I've never forgiven him, and I don't think I ever will. The recording ended. Chase was crying. So was I. Son, Dad, I meant it, every word. But Elias didn't help me heal from that. He used it. He told me that forgiveness was weakness, that you didn't deserve my love. He kept me angry because angry people don't ask questions. Talia stepped forward. He did the same to all of us, found our wounds and kept them open. Bianca pulled up a spreadsheet. I've been building the financial case for weeks. The collective has pulled in $23 million in donations over 7 years. Elias claimed it all went to property, operations, and community support. But I traced $18 million to offshore accounts. Personal accounts. Can we prove it? I asked. With these recordings? Yes. This is evidence of systematic fraud, coercion, and blackmail. The IRS will freeze his assets. The state AG will file charges. And the FBI, she smiled grimly. The FBI has been waiting for someone to hand them a case like this. How long will it take? 72 hours, maybe less. We didn't go to the media first. We went to the authorities. California Attorney General's Office, IRS Criminal Investigations, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We brought everything. The recordings, the financial records, testimony from Talia, Chase, and 4 other members Bianca had tracked down over the years. And we brought Emery Orrin, who stood in a federal building in Los Angeles and said, "My sister disappeared because a man convinced her that her shame was more powerful than the law. I'm here to tell you, it's not." Within 72 hours. The New Dawn Collective's bank accounts were frozen. Elias Kane, real name Silas Emery, was arrested on 18 counts of wire fraud, tax evasion, and coercion.
My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the... My name is Ryder Brennan. Most people know me as the man who built the largest timber opera in the state, but for the...